Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Doing business and life with a purpose, serving others and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to learn how to do business in life to make an impact in the world. What impact will you make today? My guest today, I'm so excited. She is doing some great things with the government and helping and serving so many. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. So
Working
nice
with the
to be
government can't be
here.
easy. We've talked about that in the green room and other meetings we've had. But I do
Right.
want to ask, how do you serve in your business?
Well, I serve each client. I look at each company as a person, as a client, and look at what their needs are and really try to meet them where they are. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily convert to business, but it's just some companies or people, they need that hope to know that, I have this idea and I really want to move it forward, but I'm not sure how to do it. And maybe they're not ready to engage a consultant, but I try to meet each person where they are and just talk with each person, whether they just need a conversation. And I found over the years that has made me somewhat of a therapist, even to some successful clients, um, because of the approach I just naturally take. I just think I take that approach in life, as far as I'm always rooting for the underdog. I feel like at times I've been the underdog. I understand it. And so I'm always encouraging anyone at any level as far as what they can do in business or in life. Even in church recently, um, we did a game where we talked about, what are your gifts? And what came up for me naturally was an encourager. So I feel like that is truly who I am in life and in business.
Love the word encourager. I don't know if it's in the dictionary, it doesn't matter because
Right.
we just said it
Right.
out there. So how does serving make you feel?
Oh, it makes me feel great, especially when I feel like someone has been helped and they feel that they've been helped and they feel like I feel like they can do it without me. Of course they can. But when they feel like I've contributed to their success, I mean, that makes me feel great. That's the reason to do it, right? I mean, or to help others just outside of business, right? Like if I want to volunteer and help elderly or something like that, you get, satisfaction in doing that. And it helps the person. So I always feel great about it.
And when you do something personally serving, does it spill over to your business?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have for instance, companies that I are a company that I've done business with that has invited me to actually serve with the elderly. And so that spilled over where something that I'm doing volunteering. And that's something that's close to my heart. My mom passed a few years back, and I really realized how much I enjoyed, helping and serving her. Of course, I love her as my mom, but, I enjoyed just being able to help. And I know when I would take her out to appointments, I would see so many elderly people that had no one with them, just no one there to help them, to advocate for them. So I see that spilled over, and who knows when, I really retire, maybe it'll, even go further than just a volunteer situation.
I love how you said that. That's so true. And it does. And energy, positive energy in your personal life spills over business. And you get a big sale or a great sale, it spills over your personal life. And there's a bridge that crosses over. You work with government. Interesting.
Hmm.
It's got its own challenges, but why should the government buy my product or service, your client's product or service? Why?
Well, that's my question to the client. Why should they buy your service? There's probably hundreds of people that sell painting services. Why
Yeah.
should they buy your service? And that's what we want to uncover. So we want to look at first who's buying that, who specifically is buying painting quite often. I'm just using it as an example,
Yeah.
of course, but also what are the differentiators? What makes you different from all of the other companies that create painting? And you may say there's nothing that makes me different. So I've had a company, for example, that said, I really can't think of anything to list here that makes me different. And so we got to talking about different contracts they've done. And it turns out that they had 48 consecutive contracts with this one agency. I said, that makes you different. That means that you're trusted. They like the work you produce. That's something that definitely makes you different. So that's something I work on with a client, but a client never asked me that. I asked them that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Really good question. And I love that how you serve your client by finding their needs, right?
Right, right. So I find out what it is that they sell and they're passionate about, in their business. And then I find out who's actually really needs that. Because I don't want them to waste their time trying to say, I want to sell, my product or service to the government. The government's huge. That could be federal, state, local, cities, counties. It's just it's vast. So we're not going to shoot in the dark and just sell to everyone. Who is really buying this? Who may be local to you that you can really form a relationship with? Those are the types of things that we want to visit, to try to make it, bite off, like I say, a little small piece of the elephant, to make it easier to enter and build upon it.
Yeah. So you're the business tender of the world, Tinder, in a sense. Kind of have to your audience, but you're a matchmaking. That's what you do.
Yes.
Interesting what you said about there's a plethora of contracts you do with government contracts.
Right.
A lot of businesses don't know about these, correct?
Right. Oddly, I mean, there are a lot of businesses that do not know that there are so many contracts out there. Think of the government as, a giant business. First of all, let's talk about the federal government. It's a giant business, and underneath they have divisions. Each of those divisions, they need pencils, they need painting, they need consulting services. They need all the things that our businesses would need. So we need to figure out, one, who needs those most frequently, because we don't want to target agencies that are buying something like a one-off, because it takes a lot of time, which I'll get to connect with the agencies. And we want to, make sure we're targeting those who are buying consistently and those that we can touch.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So you're serving people by finding these pencils and these paper they need, or a new copier. You bring that to these different areas of government.
Right. So I match the business with the agencies that are buying what they sell. Yeah. So that's one of the first things that we're going to do. And I'm going to tell them, whether or not they work with me or not, something that they should repeatedly do. Constantly identify what are the buying trends, who's buying, because things change, to make sure you're, not spinning your wheels trying to target the wrong agencies.
Yeah. And there's a code there. So, what is the code to unlock these government contracts?
So I'm going to give you a 1, 2, 3 code. So I'm going to say, in year 1, you're going to focus on research. That's the first thing. Focus on research, identifying the right players, starting to create relationships. Just like with anything, everything, rises and falls on relationships. So start to create relationships. These are people, these buyers. And by that, I mean, initially, you may not be able to talk to the buyer. The buyer is like, kind of behind a door, but there's something called an advocate that sits in front of that. That person is a small business advocate. And we're typically talking about small businesses here. So the small business advocate, their job is to bring in qualified firms like you. So get to know those advocates, and the advocates, get them to introduce you to the buyers and get a meeting. That's the first year of what you're going to do. You're going to build relationships. And I know you may not want to wait a year, but we're talking realistically, what's going to happen, not an infomercial at night where I'm going to get a government contract. I want to give you, real advice, real steps that you can use to move forward. So that's one. The second thing is, it's actually comes first, but it's number 2, which is 2 years in business. I'd like you to have 2 years in business of success, working with commercial firms, showing that you can actually sell. You have actually sold this product or service before, because just like with anyone else, they want someone who has past performance, who sold this successfully before. If they call the commercial company and ask for a reference for you, you have a good reference. So have 2 years in business. And number 3 is really a 3 to 5. I want to tell you 3 to 5 years is what it's going to take for the long-term gain success to really set in and come in place. So year 1, we're focusing on follow-up and building that relationship. And I'd like to say in 18 months is when you will likely get your first significant size contract, 12 to 18 months. Of course, there's always, things that happen a little differently. There's always outliers, as they say.
Yep.
Yep. But that's generally what's going to happen. So in that step 3 to 5 is when you're going to build that long-term success, and you're going to keep repeating from step 1. Or from step 1, you're going to go back to always doing that research and follow-up, and building those relationships. That's going to be the most important thing. And I know it's not as, there are other pieces in there, meaning writing proposals, responding to proposals when they release those. However, building those relationships is more key, because hopefully you can be a part of that scope. So when they put that proposal out and said, I need a number 2 pencil, and you've already built a relationship and said the best pencils have this kind of shellac on them, then when they release that proposal, they're going to use your advice and list in the scope what you stated that it should have, which basically sort of wires it for you or gives you a better advantage. So there's ways to increase your chances of winning when you're writing proposals, because proposals are great, but they're also a lot of time and money to write proposals.
And it sounds like you become the thought leader of pencils, which is usually your example. You're the expert, and that's what they look at as, Steve gave me this advice. We're going to lean more towards him because of the great advice they gave about the pencil.
Exactly.
This sounds really complex.
It is complex.
This is how you serve, then, is navigating through these waters.
Right. Navigating through the waters, trying to give you those steps that you need. So you want to get to know the industry first, not jump in and just, think I'm going to get a sale. You want to get to know who's buying what you sell. Remember, that's most important. What agencies, is there an agency that's close to you that may give you a local preference? They prefer to deal with someone who's an expert, but that's local, that they can, call it a moment's notice or something, depending on what they're offering. So a lot of agencies have that local business enterprise. They give you more points because you're local. It may be that you have something that's just very unique, rarely, but there are things that you're unique that you may want to offer. Maybe want to sell through something they call a grant. It's a grant program, but it's similar to a contract, small business innovation research. So maybe there's something that you should be focusing on that goes through this grant program because your product is new and not been tested before.
Right.
So there's so many different ways, but that's what I do, is help you navigate what's the best way for you and your business.
So the other side of it, the flip side, is the challenges working with these government contracts. What are those that the people need to know?
Patience. You have to have a lot of patience because, as I mentioned initially, that year process where you're constantly reaching out to agencies and sometimes hearing a lot of no's. Or sometimes you meet someone and they won't follow up with them, but they won't, return your follow-up. You have to be really not just patient, but more just constantly keeping up with that follow-up process, creating a method so that, say, for example, you go out to an event, you meet an advocate, and you share with them what you offer. You give them what they call a capability statement, your 1-page resume on what you sell. Okay, that's what they're going to be looking for. So you meet with them, you give them your qualifications. They say, oh, that's great. We have this, particular buyer who needs that. You think, awesome. You follow up with them. You don't hear back. So you may have to continually set a follow-up to keep following up with this person. And that can get frustrating, while at the same time keeping your business running, right? So you have other commercial clients, or maybe you do have a government client, but you're still trying to target this government client over here who really is going to give you a larger contract or more, another sales revenue path. So just remember that you've got to continue to stay in the game and don't think that it's going to be something that's going to be really quick. But it is definitely doable. I mean, there are lots of success stories out there. I have lots of clients that have been successful. All those clients that have been successful are willing to, really play the long game and really follow up. So not to say that someone can't win a contract one-off, right? Maybe you're at the right place and they need that and they buy it from you, which they can with their government credit card. But those who have long-term success are implementing these strategies.
Yeah. And it's, I love, because this is business anyways. Whether you
Mm-hmm.
just take your government out, say you're trying to work with another business and get the contract with them, it works pretty much the same way. Of course, there's a little more obstacles. I love what you just said earlier, and I'm going to rephrase as this: don't put all your eggs in the government contract basket. Do
Absolutely.
your outside stuff. This is the cherry on the cake, is what you're saying, and it could be a big cherry down the road.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. I really would like, companies to really focus on having, this is one stream of revenue, right? One channel in your pipeline that you can focus on. It shouldn't be the entire, because for one thing, the government loves commercial companies. They love big commercial companies. So if you did business with Pepsi, they're impressed just like you are. So
Yeah.
if you are able to do business with other, not necessarily large companies are great, yes, but you may be smaller companies, but just giving you an example that the government values what the commercial world does. So definitely keep your, the line of work going on the commercial side, as well as the government as another side. Now, sometimes the government may overtake at a time, or the commercial sales may overtake at a different time, but that way you're always have something. Obviously your business is still growing.
Yeah.
And I do think that government, though, is really important to implement, because the government is always going to be buying. You know what I mean? And they're always going to be required to pay you. They have regulations that require that they pay you. So if a commercial company shuts its doors and you can't get paid, this is why it's good to have kind of like those different channels of revenue.
Yeah, I like that. And it also, too, it gives people to be, they could be lucrative. And does this government contracts work like business, where I work with a certain department in government and I do such a great job? Do other governments talk to each other and go like a referral base network inside the government contracts? Does it work like that too?
Well, it can. So they do talk to each other. Yes, if they have, so they're looking for low risk, right? So if they have worked with you and you provided a phenomenal product and there was, a few bumps and they said, oh, this is low risk, this particular vendor. So yes, they may share that with their partner, like, oh, you also need painting? Try Christina's company. It's, she does a great job, great past performance. There's also something in the federal government called CPARs, and that's where they track contractors' past performance. So another agency may look in, that doesn't know the agency that you worked for, may look in there and see your past performance, how great of a job you did, and hire you from that. So not only do they talk together, but they have a system set up to track that past performance. And then there's also things like schedules. So where there's predetermined pricing, they vetted your company, contacted your references, checked your pricing, all of that. And then they put you on this government schedule. And then all the buyers can see your pricing, can see your products. They know you've been vetted. They know you're offering them the lowest prices, and they can purchase from that.
So this could be lucrative 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road as you're doing a great job and you bringing in contracts for Steve Ramona's company. It could be kind of like a flywheel where you could start organically getting these contracts.
Absolutely. I love that, organically, because you've built those relationships
Mhm.
and it's just kind of snowballing because you have such good past performance that they can see it either in the CPARs, for example. They can see it by talking to other agencies. They can see it by schedules that you're on, what was been purchased from you in the past. So there's so many different ways where that continues to organically, your past performance continues to work for you.
Yeah.
after in years to come.
Yeah. That's powerful. Just another way of having money coming in. And it's, as a business,
Right.
diversity is
Just
so powerful. Word that different, you don't, hate's the wrong word, but the company goes, I've got this huge client. Well, that client goes away and that's 80% of your income. You got to find a way to make it up. And good business people know this is another way to put in their spokes of their hub of revenue generating projects they can have. You're a servant's heart. You're proving it with all this great work that you're doing and what you talked today. So I want to know what you think a servant leader's characteristics are.
wow. Empathy.
Mm,
And I also believe encouragement, as we kind of discussed, and action. So taking action to actually beyond encouraging them and, feeling some of their pain, but taking action to help them in whatever way you can. Maybe that's introducing them to a resource. Maybe that's actually volunteering some of your time and expertise in whatever that you offer. Not necessarily, I'm just speaking of a consultant, but just as a person,
yeah.
right? So a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I feel really sorry for you, or, I'm sorry to hear that. But you know how we always say, what is it that we can do to help the person? Just like, for instance, Steve is a very, helpful person. So other than just sympathizing, there's action behind that. So I just think
Yeah.
that that's a really important part of a servant's heart.
I love that. We're running out of time, but I want to ask this question because I'd love to get your answer. Somebody comes up to you and says, you're a servant leader. I love your heart. I want to be more like that. What's one piece of advice you can give them to move towards a servant's heart?
I still go back to kind of what I just said, as far as like making sure that they're actually helping others, taking time out and I understand we all have such a busy life, but taking just some time out to really offer help to someone, just one person. Start with that. I think that's the most important thing to do.
I love that you said making sure, because sometimes people think they're serving and are actually doing the complete opposite. So that is what, and that's why I got it out of you. That's what I wanted to hear, because
Okay.
people think they're serving all the time, and when you look at it from a 30,000-foot view, you're like, you're not really serving. Whatever that may be. Can't think of any examples off the top of my head. But I do want to thank you for being on the show. You work in an incredible industry. It's complex. It's emotional. It's people have perceptions on government, but you help them navigate that. And you're definitely a servant's heart in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you bet. We'll
Glad to
bring
be
you
here.
back. There's more we can talk about.
Okay.
And thank you, everybody. Learn more about contracts, learn more about serving with the government. How powerful would that be? Don't have to be in the military. You could just serve from outside as a outside vendor, and that's a great way of serving. And we'll see all of you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. See you soon.